Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to be speaking about Thamud and their prophet Salih alayhi salam. And previously we spoke about the prophet Hud. And something that we have to know is that Prophet Hud and Prophet Salih, these two prophets are not mentioned in the Bible. They're not mentioned in the scriptures of the Jews and the Christians, right? So you're not going to find these prophets mentioned. Of course, they have other prophets that we believe in as well, right? But these two prophets and their people have not been mentioned in those scriptures. So this is something that the Quran is unique in terms of the narrative of this particular story. Now, let's jump straight into it. We'll do it like we did with the people of Ad. We're basically going to just mention all of the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them in the Quran from surah by surah. Because, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just mention their story in one place, but He mentions details in different chapters of the Quran. So the first chapter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really mentions details about the people of Thamud in is in Surah Al-A'raf. In Surah Al-A'raf, that's the first chapter of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions their story and mentions details about them. Now, Thamud, all right, Thamud, we have to understand that they were a people, right? The people, they are called Thamud, and they came about after the destruction of Ad. Now, did they know about Ad? The answer is yes, right? In Surah Al-A'raf, Salih alayhi salam, he reminds them about Ad. He tells them that Allah has brought you into existence after Ad was destroyed. So they knew about Ad, and they knew about why they were destroyed and things like that. And that's why Salih alayhi salam is trying to remind them that don't be like them. Now, where exactly was Thamud? Were they in, like what continent were they? Did they exist in? What area did they exist in? Does anybody know? Yeah? Good. In modern day Arabia, right? In modern day Saudi Arabia. Now, what part? Right? What part? Ibn Kathir and other scholars, they mentioned that they existed between Medina and between Tabuk. Between Medina and Tabuk, which is basically northwestern of Arabia. All right. Now there's even a place there. That is called Madain Salih, right? Madain Salih, and this place is believed by many to be the place where Thamud lived. All right. This is where Thamud lived, and I think we have some pictures of there. Brother Adi is going to show us, inshallah, of these just like mountains and literally like if you go in northwestern Saudi Arabia, Madain Salih, you'll see these things. All right. I don't believe there's a lot of them, but there's some of these rocks, and they literally have these places carved out of them. And I believe that they're used as tombs, right? That they're tombs, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this about Thamud, that they would literally carve their homes and carve their houses out of rock, out of the mountains, all right? Now, perhaps, these are some of the remnants of that people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, all right? Yeah. Yeah, northwestern Saudi Arabia, right? Northwestern Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you have a map. Most likely not. We didn't. I don't think we had that. But you could find. I mean, if you want to look up where Madain Salih is, it's an actual place. I mean, you can actually look at where Madain Salih is in Saudi Arabia, right? People, they travel there, and we're gonna also talk about what is the ruling on traveling there, right? Is it permissible for us as Muslims to travel to these places where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has destroyed people? Right? We're going to talk about that at the end, inshallah. All right, so let's get straight into it. Let's talk about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them in Surah Al-A'raf. So in chapter 7 of the Quran, verse number 73, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا. And we sent to Thamud their brother. In other words, a person from them. Salih was not from some foreign land that he came into Thamud and then he started calling them to Allah Azza wa Jal. No, he's from them. Right, so Allah mentions, and we sent to Thamud their brother Salih. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. He said, "O my people, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. You don't have any God besides Him." And then He says, قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ بَيِّنَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. He says to them that a clear proof has come to you from your Lord. Now, what was the proof? What was the miracle? What was the evidence that Salih alayhi salam had for his people to accept Islam? Yeah. Good, the camel, right? He had a camel. Now, what do we know about this camel? What type of camel was this? What's so special about a camel? Why a camel? Yeah. Good, it's a female camel. What else do we know about the camel? What else do we know about a camel? Is this some random camel they found?
Was it like a red colored?
Good, it was a red colored camel, right? It was a red camel. What else do we know about it? Yeah.
If I remember correctly,
If I remember
Oh,
correctly.
good. The camel gave milk, yeah?
Yeah, that the camel gave milk, and also they weren't supposed to kill it.
Good, they were not supposed to kill it, right? That was a test, right? That they would not kill this animal. And of course, eventually that's what they did. And that's when the punishment eventually came down on them after that. What else do we know about this camel? Yeah. Good. It was literally created, outside of a, like it came out of a rock. It came out of the mountain. And we'll talk about this a bit, inshallah, because somebody might be like, what? A big camel coming out of a mountain, coming out of a rock? This is strange, right? Like, I don't know how I feel about this. And you find some Muslims, right? They read these things and then they're like, what? A camel coming out of a rock? And they think that this is something that's far-fetched, right? Anyhow, so Salih alayhi salam, he tells the people that a sign, a proof and evidence, a miracle has come to you from your Lord. هَذِهِ نَاقَةُ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ. He says that this is the camel of Allah. Right? This is the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is for you a sign. فَذَرُوهَا تَأْكُلْ فِي أَرْضِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَمَسُّوهَا بِسُوءٍ فَيَأْخُذَكُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. He says, so leave it, let it eat from the earth. Let it consume from the earth. Just leave this animal alone, let it just graze, and don't touch it with evil. Don't do anything evil to this animal, lest a painful punishment should come to you. And then he says, وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعْلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ عَادٍ. And then he says, and remember when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you, He has made you successors after Ad. So see, Salih alayhi salam is telling his people about the Ad. So they knew exactly who Ad, this people were. Okay? So he's reminding them of Ad. And then he says, وَبَوَّأَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you on earth. Now what you're going to notice is Salih alayhi salam is going to remind his people of all of the things that Allah Azza wa Jal has given them. The power that they had, the strength that they had, the architecture that they had, right? So he's going to remind them of this. And so he says, remember as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you to live on earth, تَتَّخِذُونَ مِن سُهُولِهَا قُصُورًا. You would take for yourselves palaces from its plains. So they would build these palaces. Now today, do we have all of the remnants of Thamud? No, we don't. Right? We don't have everything. But there are some, as I mentioned, many scholars mentioned that Madain Salih is literally the place where Thamud used to live. And then he says, وَتَنْحِتُونَ الْجِبَالَ بُيُوتًا. And you literally carve out of mountains homes. Right? You'd carve out of mountains homes. Now, if you just look at these pictures, right? I mean, this is literally thousands of years ago. Right? Just imagine like the technology that we have today and what we're able to do with the technology we have today. Back then, how were they able to just construct, things like this? Like think about it, they didn't have the technology that we have today. So to be able to carve homes out of rocks like that, mountains, right? Without the modern technology that we have, wallahi, that's like a great feat. Now, do we say this in praise of Thamud? No, right? We say to show that how could they be so ungrateful? Look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them to do, has taught them to do. And then they are ungrateful and then they go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments and then they kill this camel and they even plan to kill Salih alayhi salam. And then he says, فَاذْكُرُوا آلَاءَ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. So, and then he says, remember the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not be corrupters on the land. And of course, did they listen? No, right? They disbelieved in him and they even planned to kill him, as I mentioned. Alright, in Surah Hud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something very similar, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions some different advices that He gave His people. Right? He gave them different advices. He says, "Who أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها." He says to them that how Allah Azza wa Jal has put you on earth and He has made you live on earth. And then He says, فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ. So ask His forgiveness and turn to Him in repentance. Right? Seek His forgiveness, ask Him to forgive you for what you have done, and turn to Him in repentance. إِنَّ رَبِّي قَرِيبٌ مُجِيبٌ. Indeed, my Lord is close, and He is the one who answers prayers. He answers whatever you want to call upon Him. And this is why anybody who's looking for guidance, right? Even if it's somebody who's not on the right path, they're looking for guidance sincerely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to them. Right? So this was the same advice that Salih alayhi salam gave his people. And then they responded to him, right? They responded to him. They said, قَالُوا يَا صَالِحُ قَدْ كُنْتَ فِينَا مَرْجُوًا قَبْلَ هَذَا. They said that, oh Salih, you were a man of promise before this. They looked up to him. They, perhaps had some plans for him, for him to be their chief, for him to be some nobleman among them. So they said to him, Salih, before all of this, like you were a man of promise, right? You had potential, right? You had potential. Look at you now. Look at what, you're going into our people, our traditions, right? So then they said that, how أَتَنْهَانَ أَن نَعْبُدَ مَا يَعْبُدُ آبَاؤُنَا. They said that, are you going to stop us from worshiping what our forefathers used to worship? Right? Are you going to stop us from worshiping what our forefathers used to worship? And this is a type of qiyas that they had, is that whatever their forefathers did had to be right. Right? This is the tradition, it must be right. Right? Look at you coming and trying to change our tradition. And this is very similar because you have some Muslims today, they believe that their culture is Islam. Their culture is correct. You're going against our traditions. You're not supposed to marry this person of this skin color. You're going against our traditions. Right? But what about wahi? What about revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? So you find that a lot of the tendencies of some people is very similar to the way that the previous nations were. Right? For example, Nuh alayhi salam, the people, they said to him, مَا سَمِعْنَا بِهَذَا فِي آبَائِنَا الْأَوَّلِينَ, that we never heard about what you're saying from our forefathers. Right? From our forefathers. So, be very careful. Like, you have to understand that there's a difference between culture and Islam. Are there things in our cultures that are Islamic? Absolutely. But does it mean that everything in our cultures are Islamic? No. There's, perhaps a lot of things in our cultures that go against Islam. Or, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but what are some of the things in cultures we find today that perhaps may go against Islam? Yeah. Huh? Drinking, absolutely, right? In certain cultures, it's like it's a part of their culture to drink. When celebration, the time of celebration comes, right? People may drink. That's something that's normal. That's what the people do, right? What else? What are some other things? We don't have to mention, like particular cultures, right? We're not doing this to bash anybody's culture, but reality is reality, right? Don't mention the culture, but mention certain things. Yeah?
Eating bat meat.
Eating what?
Bat meat.
Oh man, eating bat meat. Right, eating bat meat. Yeah, right, eating bat meat. I mean, in terms of the hukum, the ruling of eating bat, Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Is there anybody here that's ever eaten bat before? Allahu A'lam. Right? But eating bat meat, that's something that can be very dangerous, I hear, right? What else? What are some, very dangerous things we find in some cultures? It's like un-Islamic things, haram things.
Celebrating Mawlid.
Okay, celebrating Mawlid, all right. What else? What else? Parties? You said birthday parties? All right, you have certain things that people may consider as haram. For example, you have, some of the marriage customs. You can only marry somebody of this race, right? You can only marry somebody from this particular village. And if it's somebody else, then no, it's haram for you to get married to that person. You can't do it. It goes against our customs, right? And perhaps, I don't want to get into this and all of the details about these customs, but we have to understand that there's a difference between Islam and there's a difference between cultures. I'm going to give you another example how people confuse things. For example, honor killings. In some cultures they have this thing called honor killings, where it's like if a girl, she goes out with a boy or something like that, the father or the people in the family, they basically go crazy and they kill her, right? Or even the tribe, right? Everybody just basically goes crazy and then they target this girl. Or perhaps, Allahu A'lam, if they do it for men as well, I would assume so. But some people, when they look at that, they think that is Islam, right? Perhaps, you have Muslims that are doing this, but there's a difference between Muslims and what they do and what Islam says. Sometimes it's a night and day difference, right? But these people, what they said is that how are you going to stop us from worshiping what our forefathers worshipped? They didn't even think about what he's trying to tell them. To them, it was just about, it's either our forefathers or nothing. That's it. We're just going to follow what our forefathers did. And obviously, this is a mentality that obviously we should not have. And then they said that, وَإِنَّنَا لَفِي شَكٍ مِمَّا تَدْعُونَ إِلَيْهِ مُرِيبٍ. And then they said that how we are in doubt about what you bring to us. What you're calling to us, we're in doubt about it. We don't believe it. So then he said that how, he said, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِن كُنتُ عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّن رَبِّي. He says that, O my people, have you considered if I should be upon clear evidence from my Lord? وَآتَانِي مِنْهُ رَحْمَةً. And he has given me mercy. Like, have you not considered this, that perhaps I may be on the right path? And then he says, فَمَنْ يَنْصُرُنِي مِنَ اللَّهِ إِنْ عَصَيْتُ. He says that who should help me from Allah if I disobey him? Right? So Salih alayhi salam, he wasn't somebody who was a sellout, right? Who kind of like, my people are not following what I'm calling them to. Perhaps they were, telling him things that, like for example, they were telling him that, you were a man of promise, right? You have potential. Perhaps they were trying to push him away from his message. And that's not what he did. Even Quraysh, that's what they tried to do with the Prophet ﷺ. When they came to Abu Talib, they said to Abu Talib to basically hand over your nephew. Abu Talib was the Prophet ﷺ's uncle. and he never accepted Islam, but he still supported his nephew. What did the Prophet ﷺ say to Abu Talib? He said, "Oh my uncle, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, I will never give up this mission that I'm on." Right? So you find that the Prophets, they were very firm. So he says that who's going to support me from Allah if I disobey Him? فَمَا تَزِيدُونَنِي غَيْرَ تَقْصِيرٍ. That you do not increase me except in loss. If I follow you, I'm basically just going to be a loser. That's it. That's basically what he's telling his people. And then he says, وَيَا قَوْمِ هَذِهِ نَاقَةُ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ آيَةً. And then he tells them the same thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-A'raf. He says that, "Oh my people, this is the camel of Allah. It is for you a sign. So leave it and let it eat, and do not touch it with any evil. Do not do anything harmful to this animal." And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions فَعَقَرُوهَا فَقَالَ تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that they hamstrung this camel. They slaughtered this camel. And to have an animal hamstrung means to literally cut the hamstrings of the animal, to cripple the animal. And then they basically slaughtered this camel, right? This was their test. Now, and then Salih alayhi salam said to his people, he said, تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ. He said that to enjoy yourselves for 3 days. ذَلِكَ وَعْدٌ غَيْرُ مَكْذُوبٍ. That is a promise that will not fail to come true. Right? That's a promise that is true. So he told them to basically enjoy yourselves for 3 days, and then after that the punishment will come. Ibn Kathir mentions that how Thursday was the first day out of those 3 days. Right? That it was Wednesday that they killed the animal. He told them that you have 3 days after this. So Thursday came, Friday came, Saturday came, and literally every day they would say that a day has passed. Look, right? We're chilling. And when the 3 days were done, Sunday morning, right? Sunday morning, they basically came out looking for what Salih was promising them, right? And Salih alayhi salam, Ibn Kathir mentions that how Salih alayhi salam said to his people that if I bring out this camel from this rock, right? They would actually challenge him and say to him that bring us a sign. So Salih alayhi salam will tell him that if I bring out this camel, would you believe? And they all agreed. All of the chiefs, they agreed. So it wasn't something that was like random that he just brought out a camel and then forced them to believe in this camel. No, they themselves agreed that we're going to believe if you actually bring us this camel. Alright? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions فَلَمَّا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا نَجَّيْنَا صَالِحًا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا وَمِنْ خِزِي يَوْمِئِذٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when our command came, right, we saved Salih and those who believed with him out of mercy from us. وَمِنْ خِزِي يَوْمِئِذٍ. And we saved them from the punishment. We saved the believers from the punishment of humiliation, right? Of the humiliation on that day. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ هُوَ الْقَوِيُّ الْعَزِيزُ. Indeed, your Lord is strong and He's mighty. None can overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah mentions, وَأَخَذَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا الصَّيْحَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دِيَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that a sayha seized them. A sayha. Sayha in the Arabic language literally means, what does sayha mean? What does the word sayha mean? It's literally what? A scream. Sayha is literally a scream. So they were destroyed by sound. Just this loud, screeching sound. Allahu Alam what it sounded like. There was a hurricane a couple years ago. There's a brother that was a security guard here in the masjid. And I forgot what the island was that he was staying at. He was studying, right? It was some like school there that he was studying in, right? Some medicine or something he was studying. And, there was the hurricane there, so like you had a lot of people evacuating from the island. So he was telling us, he was telling us about his experiences when he came back. And some people died. It was like crazy. And he was telling us like the wind of the hurricane that he heard. He never heard anything like that. It was literally like the wind had like a voice screaming. I don't think any of us have ever heard something like that, right? Like, has anyone here ever been in a hurricane before? I think we had Hurricane Sandy a few years ago, right? I don't think that's anything comparable to like some of the hurricanes that you have in other parts of the world, right? But he said literally like windows would shatter, like glass would be flying everywhere, like buildings would collapse. It's crazy. So he said that he's never heard wind like that. So he was telling us like how when he's reading like about the people of Ad, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent winds upon them, right? Like how it kind of changes his perspective. Because you may think like wind and sound is like that's not a big deal. But you have no idea what wind and sound can actually do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how this deafening blast, this sayha, was the thing that destroyed them. Okay? And you find in other places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to it as a rajfa, literally an earthquake. So Ibn Kathir, he mentioned that how this deafening blast came from the sky. Where did it come from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But this, this blast, this sound literally destroyed them and even caused the ground to shake, right? To literally quake underneath them, right? So they were being hit from both sides, from above and below, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, كَأَلَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا, it is as if they never prospered in there. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how their bodies were just laying on the ground, right? Like everybody was destroyed, all right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how كَأَلَّمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا, it's as if they never prospered in there, right? It's as if there was no civilization, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them, right? In other words, like if you pass by, you saw all of that, you would never think that these people achieve what they actually achieved before. It's as if they never prospered. In Surah Al-Hijr, chapter 15 of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about them as well. Allah mentions, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ أَصْحَابُ الْحِجْرِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the companions of the Hijr. Hijr is literally the valley that Thamud lived in. Right? Even in northwestern Arabia, this same place, Mada'in Salih, it's referred to as Al-Hijr as well. Al-Qurtubi, one of the scholars of Tafsir, he says that وَالْحِجْرُ دِيَارُ ثَمُودَ. He says that Hijr is where the homes of Thamud were. وَهُوَ الْمَرَادُ هُنَا أي الْمَدِينَة. So Al-Qurtubi mentioned that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the people of the Hijr denied the messengers, it means the people of the Hijr, in other words, the city, the people of Hijr, right? So their city was called Hijr. It was this valley. And Qatada, one of the tabi'een, he said that وَهِيَ مَا بَيْنَ مَكَّةَ وَتَبُوكَ. As I mentioned before, Qatada, you have to understand, Qatada was very early on. Right? We're not talking about some opinion of some scholar in modern times. Qatada was one of the students of Ibn Abbas. He says that Al-Hijr is between Mecca and Tabuk, northwestern Arabia. And then he says وَهُوَ الْوَادِ الَّذِي فِيهِ ثَمُودَ. And Qatada mentioned that it's this valley that's located there. And Al-Tabari, Ibn Jarir Al-Tabari, he mentions that how Al-Tabari mentioned that how Hijr وَهِيَ أَرْضٌ بَيْنَ الْحِجَازِ وَالشَّامِ وَهُمْ قَوْمُ صَالِحٍ. Al-Tabari mentioned that how Hijr is between this place in Arabia called Hijaz and between Ash-Sham, which is basically like Syria and other places. Alright, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how the people of Hijr, of this particular place, so this is why the scholars, this is why they say that it's in that place, northwestern Arabia. From the earliest of Muslims, right, Qatada and some of the early Mufassirun, they've mentioned that this is exactly where it is. So when they looked at these archaeological findings, they found that there are some places that are basically what the pictures are showing. All right. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the people of Hijr, وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فَكَانُوا عَنْهَا مُعْرِضِينَ. We gave them our ayat, our signs, and they turned away from them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَكَانُوا يَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْبُيُوتِ وَكَانُوا يَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ. And Allah mentions that they used to carve out of these mountains, homes, thinking that they're secure. Right? So these homes would be very strong and sturdy and secure. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how they thought that they would be safe in these places. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when the sayha came, Allah mentions فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دِيَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. Allah mentioned that even in their own homes, that these homes were not enough to protect them from this blast that basically destroyed everybody. Right? So even their homes that they thought would protect them did not even protect them from Allah's punishment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions فَمَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, that what they used to earn did not benefit them. All of their civilization, all of their power didn't benefit them at all. So if you look at the lessons that we can get from this is that no matter how strong you think you are, right? No matter how strong you think you are, no matter how powerful you think you are, you can never go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandments. Right? You can never go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and think that you're going to win and you're going to come out on top. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will humiliate you the same way that He humiliated the people of Salih. Now in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions more details about the people of Thamud. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions more advices of Salih. Salih, he says to his people, أَتُتْرَكُونَ فِي مَا هَا هُنَا آمِنِينَ. He said that are you gonna be left in what's here in safety? So Salih alayhi salam, he's saying to Thamud, to his people, that do you think that you're going to be here forever in safety? Because he knows that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, He can destroy them the same way that He destroyed Ad. So then he says, فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونَ. Do you think that you're going to stay in safety here He says, fi jannatin, in gardens, wa ayun, and springs. So if you think about it, this is northwestern Arabia. Now, like in present time, it's just desert. It's all desert. Salih alayhi salam is telling his people, fi jannatin wa ayun, in gardens and springs. Right? So this was a place that had a lot of vegetation. And then he says, وَزُرُوعٍ وَنَخْلٍ طَلْعُهَا هَضِيمٍ. And he says, and you are in fields of crops and palm trees with soft and ripe fruit. Right? So they had fruit, they had these palm trees, they had fields of crops. So it wasn't like what it is today. Right? They had a flourishing civilization, right, of greenery as well. And then he says, وَتَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا فَارِهِينَ. And he says, and you skillfully carve homes out of mountains. So even Salih alayhi salam is acknowledging to his own people that you do it out of skill. And as we mentioned, right, you have to have some serious skill to be able to do what they did without the technology of today. Even with the technology of today, that's not an easy task, right? So even Salih alayhi salam is telling them that they do it skillfully. And then he says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. He says to have the taqwa of Allah. Fear Allah, have the consciousness of Allah, and obey me. Right, and obey me. And then he says, وَلَا تُطِيعُوا أَمْرَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And do not obey the command of those who are transgressors, the oppressors. He says, الَّذِينَ يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا يُصْلِحُونَ. Those who cause corruption on earth, and they do not reform. They make things worse. Salih alayhi salam is telling them not to obey their corrupt leaders. And then he says, and then they responded to him. They said to him, مَا أَنْتَ إِلَّا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُنَا فَأْتِ بِآيَةٍ إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. They said that how قَالُوا إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مِنَ الْمُسَحِّرِينَ. They said that you're only somebody who's bewitched. You have some sihr done to you. You have some black magic done to you. That's what's going on with you. Literally, they said that he was not in his right senses because of whatever magic was supposedly afflicting him. And then they said that مَا أَنْتَ إِلَّا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُنَا. They said that you're only a human being just like us. Which, if you think about it, is like an argument that has nothing to do with what he's telling them. Like, he's not claiming to be an angel, right? But they thought that because he's a human being just like us, he can't have any virtue over us, right? And then they said, فَأْتِ بِآيَةٍ إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. They said, bring us a sign if you're truthful. Bring us a sign. And this is what they asked for, right? And this was the camel that came out of the mountain. All right? And then Salih alayhi salam responds to them, and then he says, قَالَ هَذِهِ نَاقَةٌ لَهَا شِرْبٌ وَلَكُمْ شِرْبُ يَوْمٍ مَعْلُومٍ. He says that how this is the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says to them that this is a camel, it will have a day to drink, and then you will have a day to drink. So out of the place where they would get their water, Salih alayhi salam told them that area, right, let the camel drink for one day, and you're going to drink after that. And you're going to take turns like this. Right? So they really had to have some discipline here and not transgress against the camel. Ibn Abbas, Al-Qurtubi mentions a narration from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Ibn Abbas, he said that قالوا لو كنت صادقا فدعوا الله يخرج لنا من هذا الجبل ناقة حمراء عشراء فتضع ونحن ننظر. They said to Salih alayhi salam, Ibn Abbas is saying this, right? That the people of Thamud, they said that if you're truthful, then make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal so that He can take out of the mountain, out of the rock, so that He can bring out of the rock a camel, right? This big red pregnant camel, and it will give birth, and we will look at this camel. We will actually see it. It's not going to be some trickery. Like actually, if you do this, we're going to believe. So as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Shu'ara, they said that bring us a sign if you're truthful. So who are the ones who asked for the camel in the first place? Was it Salih or was it them? It was them. Salih alayhi salam didn't bring some camel out of nowhere. Like they actually requested it. This was the sign that they wanted. They said that if you bring the sign out, we're going to believe. So Ibn Abbas, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he then says, فَدَعَ اللَّهَ فَفَعَلَ اللَّهُ ذَلِكَ. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said that how Salih alayhi salam made dua for this, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought it about. So it was them who asked for this. All right? Now, I just want to stop here just for a bit, because some people, they may look at this and be like, they may hear this and say like, what, this is crazy. Like, you mean to tell me that a camel came out of rock? Right? So, how would you guys respond to something like this? Right? If you find that there's a Muslim, he's reading this, he's having a hard time, like, what? This is far-fetched. This is some fairy tales here. Like, what? How is that even possible? How would you respond to that? And this is not some far-fetched question. Like I'm telling you, you may be at work or school or something, you may have like a Muslim friend, he may ask you this, like they may be talking about this. Or somebody might attack Islam using this, like, and you're there, like, what are you going to say? Come on, yeah.
Allah, because Allah is the most powerful, and He's able to. He created Adam.
Just continue with the mic. just so everyone can hear.
So he was able to create Adam out of mud and bring light to that. He's able to create life out of. He's always able to create life. So it's nothing under his power.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So I mean, that's really the response. What else are we gonna say, right? You know, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala created everything from basically nothing. I mean, we were all nothing, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala created us. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, when He creates certain things, He puts it through a process. But that process, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is not dependent on that process because that process was put there by Him to begin with, right? So if they want to call it evolution, they want to call it this, they want to call it that, whatever it is, whatever process it is that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala creates things through, all of that process is through Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's doing as well, right? So the process and the result, right, and the product is all part of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's design. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala sometimes causes the process to happen, but there's no result. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala causes the result to happen, sometimes there's no process. And there's this principle, right, that how al-asbabu mu'athiratun la bidhatiha, that the processes of things happening, they create an effect, but not by themselves, only by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's permission. And if somebody finds this far-fetched, then look at the other miracles that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has. You have Maryam alayhi salam, who gave birth to a son without having a male partner. Like, right? If you don't find that that's far-fetched to accept, you know, you find for the most part people accept that, right? So how are you going to accept that, but then this you would think is far-fetched? Right? Like you have to be consistent. If you reject miracles, reject all of them. Reject all of them the same way that, you know, the people of old rejected their prophets. And then you'll be just like them, right? But don't be like, you know, wishy-washy. One day, you know what? Yeah, you know, Mary actually gave birth to Jesus without a male partner. Yeah, no man has touched her. But then you want to say that this is far-fetched. You know, you can't have a cake and eat it too. Yeah.
I think the other thing is just, I mean, look around us, like look at the universe. I mean, it's so vast. And on top of that, even people are still debating whether or not there's life on other planets. And if you look at the ocean also, the ocean is very vast in itself, and they're still finding new species of different marine life that are there that you wonder, like they live in conditions that are so not like for humans, and they're able to live there. So you wonder, like, how can something like this happen by chance, you know? So I mean, if we can't believe something like that lives in the ocean, we should also try to believe that, you know, something like that just came out of came out from a rock, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that's just.
But see, they may respond to, and they may be like, but we know what characteristics these living creatures have to make it live in those conditions, right? They may come at you with like we know the process. Do you see what I'm saying? We know scientifically why they're able to do that, but scientifically, how is a camel going to come out of a rock, right? So that's the thing. I think that, you know what, that's the answer. And of course, I mean, you can kind of use this as well. I'm not saying you're wrong. Absolutely. Like, I could totally relate to what you're saying, right? But I'm just saying they might, you know, I feel like maybe they might come at you with a response like that.
But I think the way I'm trying to go about is that is this mystery of the unknown, because you know, just the fact that, you know, you didn't even find it. You know, there's still so many other species that are living down there, and you don't know about it. You know, and how they came about, or where their ancestors are. I mean, you know, I guess that's another thing is.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, we believe in jinns. We believe in angels that are flying around and doing things, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? This for somebody to say that that's far-fetched, but you believe in angels. You see the point I'm trying to make, right? All of this stuff is from the ghaib. We've never experienced these things to actually see it, all right? I think that's sufficient, inshallah. And then Allah mentions in Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَا تَمَسُّوهَا بِسُوءٍ فَيَأْخُذَكُمْ عَذَابُ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. And Salih alayhi salam said to his people, and do not touch this camel with evil, lest the punishment of a great day comes to you. And then Allah mentions in the next verse 157, فَعَقَرُوهَا فَأَصْبَحُوا نَادِمِينَ. So they hamstrung this camel. They killed and slaughtered this camel. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, فَأَصْبَحُوا نَادِمِينَ. In the morning, they became regretful. When they saw that punishment, when they saw that people were dying in front of them, in those last moments, that's when they had regret. Right? And that regret is going to be with them forever. In the fire, like it's going to be there forever. And we ask Allah to protect us from a regret like this. I mean, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, فَأَخَذَهُمُ الْعَذَابِ, that the punishment seized them. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةٍ, indeed, in that is a sign. وَمَا كَانَ أَكْثَرَهُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ, and most of them did not believe. And this is something that's very common. You know, most of the people of the prophets did not believe in them. Right? Those who were destroyed. Right? So it was a vast majority of the people of Thamud who disbelieved and got destroyed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, remember in Surah Hud, Allah mentioned that how He saved Salih and those who believed with him. But they were just a few people, right? All of the time you find that it was just a few people among the vast majority of people that actually believed in the prophets when the people were destroyed. In Surah An-Naml, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions some more details that is not mentioned elsewhere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا, and we certainly sent to Thamud their brother Salih, أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ, that calling them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, calling them to worship Allah. فَإِذَا هُمْ فَرِيقَانِ يَخْتَصِمُونَ, and Allah mentions how they became into two factions arguing with each other. Now these two factions, these two groups, right? Salih alayhi salam literally came and he split his people up. He absolutely split his people up, right? It's not that he didn't want unity, but he didn't want the unity upon batil, upon falsehood, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how they became in two groups, يَخْتَصِمُونَ, arguing with each other and disputing with each other. Of course, for good reasons, right? The people of Salih alayhi salam who believed in him, they would argue against the disbelieving people. And then Salih alayhi salam would say to them, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لِمَ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ قَبْلَ الْحَسَنَةِ. He would say, "Oh my people, why do you seek to hasten evil before good?" Right? They would actually come and say, "Bring the punishment, bring the punishment," and actually kind of dare like that. So he would tell his people that, why are you rushing to get punishment, right, instead of good? And then he says, لَوْلَا تَسْتَغْفِرُونَ اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Why don't you seek Allah's forgiveness so that you may receive mercy? So now the question is, did they know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the answer is yes. Right? They accepted that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in general was their Lord. That's why He's telling them this, right? He's not telling them as if they're atheists. They were not atheists, right? They had gods. Remember in Surah Hud, right? They said that, "Are you going to stop us from worshiping what our forefathers worshipped?" They worshipped idols. They worshipped other gods. But they did believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His existence, and that He is their Lord. Obviously, they didn't give that belief its right. We're not saying that, right? But He told them that, why don't you seek Allah's forgiveness so that you may receive mercy? He would not be telling them this if they didn't believe in Allah's existence in the first place, right? So they did believe in Allah's existence. So we got to realize, if you believe Allah exists, that doesn't make you a believer, right? You can still be a disbeliever. You can still be a kafir, a disbeliever, even if you believe in Allah's existence. That's not enough to believe in Allah. Does Iblis know that Allah exists? Yes. Is he a believer? No. So if anybody want to say that I believe God exists, I believe God's there, right? That's not enough to make you a believer. Because if it's not enough for Iblis to be a believer, then it's definitely not going to be enough for you, right? So then they said, قَالَ طَيَّرُنَا بِكَ وَبِمَنْ مَعَكَ. They said that how we're getting bad luck from you and those who are with you, right? So this concept of bad luck, bad omens, evil omens, was even around during that time, thousands of years ago, right? So they said that we're getting bad luck from you and your people, right? You and your people are bad luck. So then Salih alayhi salam then says to them, قَالَ طَائِرُكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ تُفْتَنُونَ. He says that your bad luck, your evil omens, it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all by Allah's qadr. And that's why we have to realize that as Muslims, there's no such thing as karma. Right? There's no such thing as karma. You know, some people, they say karma is this and karma is that. It's going to come and karma is going to get you and all of this stuff. What is karma? Somebody tell me what karma is. Huh? What is karma? Yeah, they say, karma is what comes around goes around, but it's not as simple as that. Karma is like an actual belief. What is karma? Yeah, right. Good. It's a Hindu belief, right? But what is it? What is karma? Come on. I think you guys definitely heard like karma before, and karma's this and karma's gonna get you and stuff like that. Okay, what karma is the belief that Okay, good, right? Excellent, right? That's part of it as well. That's one of the main parts of karma, right? Is that if you do good, it's going to come to you, that there's this balance of good and evil, right? Excellent, right? But karma is basically like if you live your life good in your present life, then your next life, you're basically going to get good. So like, for example, if you have something like a caste system, if you're like one of the untouchables, the people all the way in the bottom, if you act good in this life, then you're going to get promoted in your next life. Whatever human body you're born into in the next life after you die is going to be like in a higher status. You're going to get some good in the next life because of what you did here. But karma is if you are bad here in the next life, when you were reborn, you're basically going to be in a bad situation, or some bad is going to come to you, right? So we got to realize that everything is by the qadr of Allah. There's no such thing as bad luck, right? Even the Prophet ﷺ tells us that al-tiyaratu shirk, that this type of bad luck and bad omens, it's shirk. Because you're believing you're believing something is affecting creation besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. Everything is by Allah Azza wa Jalla's control. So there's no such thing as a black cat, and what else we got? Walking underneath a ladder, right? Open up an umbrella indoors. Pouring salt, like spilling salt. What else? What else we got? Breaking a mirror. What else? Putting a bag on the ground. You know, one time I was in the hospital, I was holding my wife's bag, and it's like a purse, obviously, so people know that there's money in there, right? So there's this lady that was sitting across me, and she started freaking out when she saw the bag on the ground, right? I think she was, I don't know where she's from, but anyhow, she was started freaking out, right? And I'm like, you know, like what's going on? She's like, pick up the bag, pick up the bag. So then I kind of left the bag there. I'm like, what? Like, why should I pick up the bag? And she's like, pick up the bag, pick up. And she was going crazy. So I just picked up the bag. Not because I believed her, because I don't want to get into no fight, right? So I picked up the bag, and then I'm like, and then after that, you know, after that she calmed down. So I'm like, what's so bad about putting the bag on the ground? She said that if you put the bag on the ground, it's bad luck. So when I started reading up about this, I'm like, well, I never heard about this in my life. Have you guys ever heard about this? So I think it's like a Jamaican superstition, right? They say that money on the floor is money out the door. Right? Money on the floor is money out the door. So you can't put anything that has money, like a bag of money, on the ground. Otherwise, huh?
Did you put the bag down again?
I think I probably did, right? Because I don't believe in that, man. I mean, listen, everything is by Allah's qadr, not by no bad luck and karma and all of these superstitions, right? Is everybody clear on this? So, you know, be careful because the thing is, like, when it comes to karma, people actually believe, like, there's this thing about, karma, and actually start taking it as a belief. So, Salih alayhi salam said to them that your bad luck is all with Allah. In other words, it's by Allah's qadr, not by itself, right? So he's telling them that there's no such thing as this bad luck, as this, as these bad omens. Yeah.
There's this, oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting the mic. Right. So there's this, speaking of bad omens, I know on 179th Street, there's this, like, one place where you guys live around there, right? You know, there's some guy, he sells out these cards. It's like
179, like where?
179th Street and Hillside Avenue. It's like they sell some cards. It's like for like to protect you from like evil. It's I don't know if it's like a Hindu type of ritual, but I don't know. I shouldn't say ritual, but like part of that culture where.
What are they selling?
Yeah, tarot cards. Like, you know, it's like a yellow card, and then it's like, oh, if you have a bad luck and if you have some problems in your marriage, evil eye, things like that. There's like a place over there where they do these type of I guess fortune telling or those type of stuff. I don't know. It's I don't know if you see it. It's like a guy. He just sells these cards all the time. And
there's a guy like in the street like giving a card.
Yeah. I think I
Advertising.
was just passing by somebody today.
It's
somebody
right by Bismillah supermarket.
Where was
and
it?
there's
Where
like
was
that.
it? I think it was on
I don't
Jamaica.
know.
Yeah, it was on Jamaica Avenue. I was walking to Jamaica Avenue today, and there's this lady. She had like this is like 168. You know what a T-Mobile store is? Right. You know, there's like a Dunkin' Donuts over there. Yeah. There was this lady. She has like this sign with the hand. You guys know what the card is? Like yellow in the background with like a blue hand or red hand. Yeah. So I don't know if they read your palms, what they do, right? But this type of thing where you go to a fortune teller, there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ tells us that whoever goes to these people to read your fortune, to tell you the future. Because remember, does anybody know the future except Allah? No, right? So what these people are doing is basically shirk. They're claiming to have knowledge that only Allah has. That's an example of shirk, right? So the Prophet says, whoever goes to these people and just asks them, not even if you believe in it, you just ask them, لَمْ تُقْبَلْ لَهُ صَلَاةٌ أَرْبَعِينَ يَوْمًا. Your salah will not be accepted for 40 days. Even if you just ask. Because somebody might be like, well, what's the harm in just asking? I remember one time, it was a class, we were talking about this, and some of the students, they were saying that what's the harm in asking? Like, why is that such a big deal? My salah is not going to be accepted for 40 days if I just ask? If I just buy, I'm not believing these people. I just want to see what he's saying. It's just out of curiosity. But you know what they say about curiosity, right? Curiosity kills the cat, right? So they say, I'm just being curious. So one sister, she raised her hand, and she shared her experience. She said that when she was younger, right? I think she read like some fortune, somehow she got her fortune done for her. I think she went to somebody or something. When she was young, she didn't know any better. So she went and she didn't believe in him. The person told her that this is going to happen next year. She didn't believe in it. Next year, whatever the person told her is going to happen, remember, they give you very general stuff. Something good is going to happen to you in the last quarter of the next year, right? So something happened to her. And remember, she didn't believe what the person told her, but when it happened in a similar way to what the person said, it was like a fitna for her. She's like, what? How does this person even know that? How does this person even know that, right? How is that even possible? So perhaps it's just coincidence. Perhaps the jinn, they have some information or something, but not of the future, but perhaps they know somebody's plans or something like that, right? So she said it was a fitna for her. So the thing is, when you hear these fortunes, you may not believe in it right away. But later on, it may be a fitna for you. And nobody is safe. You never know what can come into your mind later on. So the Prophet says, if you go to them and you just believe, you just ask without even believing, right? Just ask, no salah is going to be accepted for 40 days. Now the question is, do you still have to pray? Yes. Your balance is going to be 0. But if you don't pray, your balance is negative. So you have to keep praying to kind of maintain your balance. But you don't get any reward for it. There's another hadith in Abu Dawud where the Prophet says, whoever goes to a fortune teller and believes in them, فَقَدَ كَفَرَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ. Then they have disbelieved in what has been revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you got two things. You ask, no salah for 40 days. You believe, now you're believing in somebody who has information that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should know. So now you've made that person a rival with Allah. You've disbelieved in Allah. Right? That's pure shirk. So we have to understand that fortune telling is not just going to the person on Jamaica Avenue. It's not just going to this one in Jackson Heights and that one wherever these people are. It's not making a phone call. It could come to you via text message. You know, they have these people that read your fortune online. You do like a Skype session, they look at your palm, and then they tell you all of this different stuff. So it could be through technology, it could be a text message, it could even be through a cookie. I mean, listen, most of the fortune cookies, they have like basically just these sayings in them, right? These wise sayings. But sometimes they may have an actual fortune in there. So you don't want to play around with that, right? Anyhow, that's besides the point. But you have horoscope apps, all of these different stuff. So you got to be careful with this stuff. So Salih alayhi salam said that how your ta'ir, your omen, your bad luck, it's all with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala via His qadr. And then he says, بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ تُفْتَنُونَ. Rather, you are people that are being tested. It's Allah's test of you, not bad luck. Right? So he clearly tells them that how it's a test from Allah. And Allah mentions, وَكَانَ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ تِسْعَةُ رَهْطٍ يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا يُصْلِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that after the next verse, Allah mentions that there were 9 men. These were, the main troublemakers of the people of Thamud. Now the rest of the people, they were just kind of like following along with whatever their leaders made them do. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how there were 9 men who would cause corruption and not reform. Allah mentions what they said. They said, قَالُوا تَقَاسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ لَنُبَيِّتَنَّهُ وَأَهْلَهُ. These 9 men, they said to their people, they said that at night we're going to plan. We want you all to swear by Allah. Remember, they believed in Allah, in Allah's existence. They knew who Allah was in general. So these 9 people, these 9 troublemakers, they said to their people, we want you all to swear by Allah. Who are they swearing by? It's by Allah. You see the point I'm trying to make? Is that they believe Allah existed. It wasn't like they were atheists. They said, we want you to swear by Allah that we're going to plan against Salih and his family. In other words, they wanted to kill him at night. They wanted to basically murder Salih alayhi salam. ثُمَّ لَنَقُولَنَّ لِوَلِيِّهِ مَا شَهِدْنَا مَهْلِكَ أَهْلِهِ وَإِنَّا لَصَادِقُونَ. And then in the morning, when the relatives, when they want to find out what happened to Salih and his family, you will all say that we didn't know anything. We didn't see what happened. We had nothing to do with it, right? And we're truthful. And obviously they would have been liars. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them. And Allah mentioned, وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And they plotted, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we plotted as well, while they didn't even realize. Okay, and then Allah mentioned, فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ مَكْرِهِمْ. Look at the end result of their plots and their plans. أَنَّا دَمَّرْنَاهُمْ وَقَوْمَهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. That we destroyed them and all of their people. And only those who have disbelieved, of course. Allah saved those who were believers. Allah says, وَأَنْجَيْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. And we saved those who believed and had taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal. They had the consciousness of Allah. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Naml. Also in Surah Fussilat, there's just 2 verses there. Verse number 17, Allah, He says, وَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ. And as for Thamud, we guided them. We showed them guidance. Right? Remember how we spoke about the 2 types of guidance previously? One form of guidance is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts guidance in somebody's heart. The other form of guidance is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows them the truth. Right, and gives them the chance to follow it. This is the type of guidance that Allah is mentioning here. And as for Thamud, we showed them guidance. فَاسْتَحَبُّوا الْعَمَى عَلَى الْهُدَى. And they chose blindness over guidance. Look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comparing misguidance with blindness. It's as if you're blind, you can't even see. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that they chose blindness over guidance. Allah mentioned فَأَخَذَتْهُمْ صَاعِقَةُ الْعَذَابِ الْهُونِ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that how the deafening blast of the humiliating punishment seized them بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ because of what they used to do. Because of what they used to earn. And Allah mentioned وَنَجِينَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ and we saved those who believed and had taqwa. Okay, these are just the two verses from Surah Fussilat. Also in Surah Al-Qamar, there's a couple of verses in there, a few verses, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what happens to them. In verse 23, Allah mentions كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِالنُّذُرِ. Allah mentioned that how Thamud denied all of the warnings. So you have to realize Allah mentions nudhur, which is plural, is that they didn't have one warning or two. They had at least 3 warnings. And of course, Salih alayhi salam spent a long time among them. How long did he live among them, calling them to Allah Azza wa Jal? Allah knows best. Perhaps it was years. Right? People used to live for very, very long times back in those days. So they said, فَقَالُوا أَبَشَرًا مِنَّا وَاحِدًا نَتَّبِعُهُ إِنَّا إِذًا لَفِي ضَلَالٍ وَسُعُرٍ. They said that how are we going to follow one man among us? So they had this idea that if it was one man, it must be wrong. If it's one man who said this, it must be wrong. Right? In other words, they wanted to follow the majority. Right? Like if it's just one person, he can't possibly be right. Look at all of us, the power we have, the technology we have in their time, right? The civilization, the civilization that we have. How can we follow this one man? They said that if we follow him, we're going to be in misguidance and madness. And then they said, أَأُلْقِيَ الذِّكْرُ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ بَيْنِنَا. That has the revelation come down on him as opposed to us? Like we're all here, why him? Why not us? Why not one of the chiefs? Why not one of the powerful ones? They said that how بَلْ هُوَ كَذَّابٌ أَشَرٌ. He is an arrogant liar. Right? He's just an arrogant liar. That's what they said. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, سَيَعْلَمُونَ غَدًا مِنِ الْكَذَّابُ الْأَشْرِ. They will know tomorrow who is the arrogant liar. In other words, it was them. Right? They, of course, recognized the truth that Salih brought them. He brought them the miracle that they asked for. Right? They were the ones who were the liars. And Allah mentions, إِنَّا مُرْسِلُ النَّاقَةِ فِتْنَةً لَهُمْ فَارْتَقِبْهُمْ وَاصْطَبِرْ. Allah mentions what He told Salih. Allah says that indeed we will send the camel to them as a fitna for them, as a test for them. So Allah says to Salih, فَارْتَقِبْهُمْ وَاصْطَبِرْ. So just look at them, right? Just watch them and be patient. And be patient, right? So if you look at anytime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send His prophets, He would kind of guide them through the difficulties that they were going through and tell them what's going to happen. All right, and then Allah mentioned وَنَبِّئْهُمْ أَنَّ الْمَاءَ قِسْمَةٌ بَيْنَهُمْ and inform them that the water should be shared between the camel and them. كُلُّ شِرْبٍ مُحْتَضَرٍ. Each one's right to drink is being established by turns. So one day, Ibn Kathir mentioned that one day they would drink from the well that had this water, and then another day the camel would drink from the water. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that فَنَادَوْ صَاحِبَهُمْ فَتَعَاطَى فَعَقَرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how they called their companion. It was one man who kind of was daring enough to actually kill the camel. Right? And of course they all came in and they joined after. But it was one man who came first. It was one guy. He was from one of the chiefs, as Ibn Kathir mentions. And Ibn Kathir mentions that how his name was Qudar ibn Salif. Right? Qudar ibn Salif was the name of this man. Now we have to realize the people of Thamud, they were Arabs. They were Arabs, right? They lived in the Arabian Peninsula. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how they called their companion, right? Qudar ibn Salif, فَتَعَاطَى فَعَقَرَ. And he took a sword and he killed, he hamstrung the camel. And then Allah mentions فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرْ. That how was my punishment and my warnings. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَكَانُوا كَهَشِيمِ الْمُحْتَضِرِ. Allah mentions that how we sent upon them this deafening scream, this blast, فَكَانُوا كَهَشِيمِ الْمُحْتَضِرِ. And they became like twigs of an animal pen. Right? In other words, they were just completely destroyed. Right? So then this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Qamar. And in Surah Ash-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something very similar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا. That the worst of them was sent. And as I mentioned, Ibn Kathir mentions that the man who was sent at the beginning was Qudar ibn Salif. And then Allah then mentions فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ وَسُقْيَاهَا. And Allah mentions that how the messenger of Allah. So we know that Thamud was a Rasul, not just a Nabi. because he was sent to disbelieving people, right? So Salih alayhi salam said to his people, beware of the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its drinking, and its drinking. Allah mentioned, فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَعَقَرُوهَا. So they disbelieved in him, they denied him, and they hamstrung this camel, they killed this camel. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُم بِذَنْبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا. So their Lord destroyed them and made them all equal in punishment. It didn't matter what their status was. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them all leveled in punishment. Right? And then Allah mentions وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقُبَاهَا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not fear the consequences of what's going to happen. You know, sometimes we may do something, we fear the consequences of what it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things based on perfect hikmah and perfect justice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no fear of what's going to happen after that. Now, so this is basically just a summary of the verses. We went over the vast majority of the verses that talk about Salih. There's like a couple that don't mention too many details. But this is basically all of the chapters that really mention the story of Salih. So we went over every verse that really mentions his story. We've gone over everything that the Quran has to tell us about the story of Salih. And to be honest, that's enough to really understand and to take benefit from their story. Now, what about hadiths? What hadiths do we have? There's a hadith in Bukhari, right, narrated by Abdullah bin Zam'a radiallahu anhu, that he heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving a khutbah one day. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam وَذَكَرَ النَّاقَةَ وَالَّذِي عَقَرَ. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the camel and he mentioned the one who killed the camel. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he recited the verse إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا, the verse from Surah Ash-Shams. The Prophet ﷺ recited when the worst of them was sent. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says إِن بَعَثَ لَهَا رَجُلٌ عَزِيزٌ عَارِمٌ مَنِيعٌ فِي رَهْطِهِ مِثْلُ أَبِي زَمْعَةٍ. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that how a man who had authority, he was a very quarrelsome man, right? He would like to argue a lot. He was very arrogant and very mighty and haughty man. The Prophet ﷺ says that how this man was sent to kill the camel. And the scholars mentioned that his name was Qudar ibn Salif. In Sahih Muslim, we have a narration where the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they actually came upon the dwellings of Thamud. Now this is very interesting because the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba actually walk through this place. I want you guys to pay attention because it's a very interesting narration and it has a lot of implication for us as well. So Nafi', which is the student of Ibn Umar, he says that Ibn Umar أخبره أن الناس نزلوا مع رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم على الحجر أرض ثمود. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the people, they came to a place called Hijr. Remember, Allah refers to them as the people of Hijr, which is the city of the people of Thamud. So Ibn Umar, he says that how some people, they came with Allah's messenger to Hijr, the land of Thamud. So even Abdullah ibn Umar mentioned that Hijr is the land of Thamud. So this is not just some opinion of some scientists later on. This was Abdullah ibn Umar, the Sahabi. He says, فَاسْتَقَوْا مِنْ آبَارِهَا. So the people, the Sahaba, they took some of the water from the wells of Thamud. They had some wells that were there, and the Sahaba took some of the water from the wells. Alright? وَعَجَنُوا بِهِ الْعَجِينَ. And then they made some of their dough with this water that they got from the wells. فَأَمَرَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم أن يهرقوا ما استقوا ويغلفوا الإبل العجين وأمرهم أن يستقوا من البئر التي كانت تردها الناقة. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, Ibn Umar says that the Prophet told them to pour out the water, spill the water. Whatever water they took for drinking, wudu, whatever the case was, he told them to throw it out. Don't use this water. Right? And he told them that whatever dough you've made with this water, give it to the camels to eat. Don't consume it. Right? Don't take anything from this place that Allah has destroyed. Leave it alone. Right? Leave it alone. So and then he commanded them to basically go. He showed them where the well that the camel would drink from was, and he told them to get water from there, not from the other places. Right? So this is why there's many scholars, they say that we cannot use things, whether it's like, cosmetic things and all of these different things, from places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destroyed people. Right? So if you ever go there using the water and things like that, when the Sahaba were there, the Prophet told them, do not take anything from there. Just leave it as it is. Right? Where Allah's punishment has come down, do not bring back anything. Don't even take the water. Now if you think about it, this is in the middle of the desert. They need the water. So it's definitely something serious that the Prophet is telling them about. There's also another narration in Sahih Muslim narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar. He says, "Mararna ma'a Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala al-Hijr." Ibn Umar, he said that how we went with Allah's messenger, we passed by Hijr, al-Hijr, this place. And he says, فَقَالَ لَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Allah's Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم said to us, he said, لَا تَدْخُلُوا مَسَاكِنَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم. The Prophet told them that do not enter upon the homes of those who have wronged themselves. In other words, those who Allah has destroyed, do not go there. Do not enter into their places. إِلَّا أَن تَكُونُوا بَاكِينَ حَذَرًا أَن يُصِيبَكُم مِثْلُ مَا أَصَابَهُم. Do not enter into their places where they used to live. Do not go into their cities and places like this, except if you're going to be crying. Except if you're going to be crying and being aware or being being kind of cautious that what has afflicted them will afflict you as well. So think about that. You have some people like some of the scholars, for example, Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah. Some people asked them, "Can we visit Madain Salih, this same place, right? Which is the remnants of the people of Thamud." So they said, "Can we visit this place?" And you have many other scholars who have said this as well. He said that to do it out of just like vacationing, just to have like a good time, is not permissible because of hadiths like this. It's something serious. Like you shouldn't be going there, but like, haha, it's nice, and like as if it's an amusement, right? But if you're going there as a reminder, if you're going there to kind of see this place, to like remind yourself of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment and these people and how ungrateful they were. Because when you look at the pictures that we showed, right, those are like pretty like sturdy, huge monuments that they've built. We don't look at it like admiring them like, wow, they were a great civilization. No, but we look at how ungrateful they were. That's the point, is you get some benefit from it. So there's many scholars mentioned that if you're passing by a place like this, if you want to visit, then it's only permissible to do so if you're taking a reminder from it. And it's not just some type of vacation. Right? There's some benefit, Islamic benefit that you're getting from it. And even Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that how the Prophet ﷺ فَنَهَا عَنْ عُبُورِ دِيَارِهِمْ إِلَّا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْخَوْفِ الْمَانِعِ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ. Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that how the Prophet ﷺ forbade them from visiting these places, right? From entering these places and passing by, except if you're going to take a benefit from it and increase in your fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, right? That's basically what we have today for Thamud. Does anyone have any questions, any comments, anything that they would like to add? Yeah.
Was there any progenies that Thamud? Oh, sorry. Forgetting. Was there any progenies that Salih alayhi salam had, like in terms of sons, things like that?
About his children, Allahu A'lam. I didn't come across anything about his children. Now they did continue to live. So Salih alayhi salam, and the believers, they were saved. Ibn Kathir mentioned that how there were some other people that were not. There was like a couple people that were kind of like spared from the punishment. So in the people of Thamud, there were a couple people that the punishment did not basically kill, basically destroy. And I forgot what this man's name was, but some of the narration mentioned that even after he escaped from Thamud, there's some narration mentioning that how he came into Mecca. And when he came into Mecca at that time, of course, I don't think anybody was living there at that time. It was pretty much just desert. When he came into that area, he was allowed to continue to live because he was in the haram, in the sacred place. And Ibn Kathir mentioned that after he left there, that's when he died. So nobody was really spared. Some people were spared like at the very beginning, only a couple of people. But then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically destroyed them after that, right? But about Salih alayhi salam and his people, their actual descendants, Allah knows best. Anyone else? Yeah. So, as I was mentioning, you have this place, even in Saudi Arabia today, called Madain Salih. Literally the cities of Salih. That's literally what Madain Salih means. And it's a place today, I don't know if you were here when we showed some of the pictures of that place. Yeah. So if you actually go there, you'll see these things. I mean, I think it's even like a tourist attraction. People actually go to visit, this place. But as we mentioned, only do so out of getting that benefit. Only do so out of kind of increasing your fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's a reminder. Like you see certain places. There's like other places around the world where, especially in that area where it's said that these are ruins of like the earlier people that were destroyed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, right? Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
But after hearing this lecture, it made me realize, there's so many civilizations in this world, like the Mayans, Aztecs, the Greeks, you name it. And there are verses in the Quran, and what I've heard is like Allah has sent down prophets to every major civilization, right? And then this is an analogy I had a couple of years back where I started putting things together, and
Cracking the code.
and then it made me realize every civilization of this nature, right? They had these gods that they believed in that, you know, for example, like Zeus, who controlled lightning, or the Mayans believed in like a sun god. Is there I don't know if I just want to get an answer from you, but is there a possibility that perhaps all of these gods and goddesses that they believed in per se were perhaps prophets, and over time Shaitan sort of shifted people's mindset just as they did to, you know, people of Mecca, and had them sort of believe that, like, and originally perhaps like the civilizations believed that they were prophets and believed in the message.
Yeah.
But as generations went on by, they started becoming more like gods.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we had 2 lectures ago, when we spoke about Nuh alayhi salam, right? Because Nuh alayhi salam was before Hud, and Hud was before Salih, right? Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, there's a narration in Bukhari where Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells that the idols that the people of Nuh had, because they were the first people that started like committing shirk on like a community level, right? Before that, it was just like Iblis and things like that, right? Individuals. But it was the first like civilization that started this practice of shirk was the people of Nuh alayhi salam. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells us that the idols that they had certain names for their idols that Allah mentions in Surah Nuh. So these names, Ibn Abbas, he says that how these names are not just names of these idols, but these were the names of righteous people. They were actually righteous people, people who worshipped Allah Azza wa Jal. And these were the names of righteous people. When they died, Shaitan came to them, perhaps in the form of a man, through his whisperings, however it came, and basically told them to basically build statues of these righteous men, right? And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said, فَفَعَلُوا وَلَمْ تُعْبَدْ. So they made these statues, but they were not worshipped, right? They basically just made these statues just to remember these men. There was no shirk up until this point, right? And then Ibn Abbas then mentions that how when they died, when that generation died, and they forgot, وَنُسِيَ الْعِلْمُ, and like knowledge was forgotten, ubidat, that's when they started to be worshipped. So if you look at these idols that they have, the origins of these idols were actually righteous men. If you look at what happened to other religions, for example, Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, like Isa alayhi salam being a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at today, right? So really that, you know, and this is why the Prophet forbade us from innovating things in the religion. Because when you innovate things in the religion, it may not be a big deal for you now, right? You may innovate a practice, it may not change the deen, but imagine 1,000 years of everybody just innovating. After a while, you're going to lose the original message that the Prophet came with, right? That's why, you know, like bid'ah is not just some simple thing, right? It's that this is how Iblis gets you to kind of be misguided. So, like, it's a case-by-case thing. Like, perhaps maybe these gods that they have, maybe it's just like creations of their mind. They just made it up. Or perhaps it could be kind of like a perversion of the truth that originally came to them thousands of years ago. Yeah, like prophets, right? I mean, you know, you have some people, they say that Buddha was a prophet and stuff like that. Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. I don't know, right? Right? You know, you have, you know, some of these stories that people have in these, you know, ancient, civilizations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, knows best. Perhaps there's some element of truth, but they perverted it. They kind of, you know, twisted it around, right?
And then again, there were 124,000 prophets. So
Yeah, so we don't know about the vast majority of them, right? Only 25 have been mentioned in the Quran, and there's some others that have some difference of opinion, right? Whether they're prophets or not. But like, we don't know about vast majority of them, and they came to whatever civilizations they came to.
the Sahaba, they made like a statue or a statue of Prophet Musa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he had
Of which prophet? Musa?
sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, didn't they make something like out of like a sculpture or something along the lines of that? When he told them to get rid of it or destroy it.
So you said that they made a statue of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him?
Like, this is while the Prophet was alive. I don't know if this is like a hadith, or I'm not too sure, but I heard somewhere that the Sahaba, they out of love or respect,
Yeah, I've never heard that. Allahu alam, Allah knows best. Alright, so we're going to stop here, inshallah. We're going to stop here. Now we have our brother Mitch. I'm going to call him up here, inshallah, and in a second. And just to tell you a little bit about him. So, brother Mitch, mashallah, he took his shahada on Friday, right? This Friday that just passed. Perhaps a lot of you were here for Jum'ah, right before the khutbah. He took the shahada, mashallah. And he just wants to tell us some things that he's experienced since being a Muslim, some of the things that he's been able to kind of like see and understand. So I'm going to call Mitch to come up, inshallah. Maybe somebody can bring up a chair, inshallah. All right, yeah, no problem.